There has to be a superior being because this can't be happenstance.
Today on Super Normalized, I have Ron Mills, a native Clevelander residing in Columbus, Ohio. He is a former host of an internet paranormal radio show and has always been interested in the weird, strange, and paranormal, which is right up our alley. Ron's tagline for the paranormal show was doubt if you dare, but believe if you have the courage. Welcome to the show, Ron.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
So
Yeah.
I got to ask you, Ron, do you prefer Ron or Ronnie?
Ron is fine.
Ron's fine. Okay, great. Okay. So you've written a book. I'm going to start right there because, I mean, I've had a little look at that and it looks very interesting and has some curious angles on it. It's about angels and angelic contact. I'm all for angelic contact. I've actually worked with angels myself. I've had angelic experiences where they've saved me several times.
Wow.
So that's exactly what I've experienced. So tell us a little bit about your book and how it came about.
My book came about. I've had one experience that I know for sure.
Yeah.
And I was driving. There's an intersection. It was, the light was green for me to go. And it sounds like I heard something in my ear that said, "Don't go."
Yeah.
And I started to pull off anyway, just thinking I'm listening to radio or something.
Yeah.
And it was kind of screamed in my ear, "Don't go." And I put on the brake and a guy just blew through that intersection. I would definitely been hit.
Yeah.
So, and I've always been interested in the supernatural, even though I was a kid. UFOs, anything that had to do with the supernatural on the other side. So I was sort of between jobs, and I wrote a book before because I was a social worker for 35 years and wrote a book before, Style of Substance and Critical Analysis of African American Teenage Subculture. And I wrote that in the time and the work I was in. So I was between, and I said, I wanted to explore this whole angel thing. Because angels, I got like the Book of Enoch and the Dead Sea Scrolls, and that gave me more information about angels, and I became more interested in it because as a child I would hear about David slewing Goliath.
Yeah.
And I asked my minister when I was there in church, and I'm not affiliated with any church now, I kind of asked him, hey, so Goliath was a giant. Where did he come from? And he told me, well, giants was just walking around in those days, because I guess he was one of those ministers who wouldn't pick up any other text. So I said, but how'd they get here as a kid? I'm like, how did giants get here and why they're not here today? And he was just like, oh, they were just back in that time. So I got older and as an adult started looking, doing some information and looking at the book, the Apocryphers that they took out of the Bible. And so I looked up the Book of Enoch, and I was like, oh, I've heard of Enoch in Genesis and the begats. How come they don't mention him? So I start reading about that, and I start reading about the Watchers. Watchers were supposed to come down and teach men certain things and look after them. And then they start teaching men things that they shouldn't have. And they start teaching, they saw the daughters of men, and they took them for their own. And it was, I guess, the start of what we call the Nephilim. The giants said their offspring, half-breed offspring, they were giants.
Yeah.
And that's who were there then. I'm like, wow, this explains the giants.
Yeah.
this explains the giants, the whole thing with the giants. And I was like, that is amazing. So I said, I guess my minister never picked up this book, so and that started me into wondering about angels and how they interact with people because I've heard different things, but angels are much more complicated than I thought once I started doing some research.
Right, right, right. So this research that you did led you to write a book with
You're
some
there. I don't know if we
stories.
lost each other's.
I'm still here. Can you hear me? Wow. Are you there?
Okay, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. I wonder what happened there because sometimes I've actually heard this about other people on podcasts talking about angels and stuff. As soon as you start talking about the fallen angels, we have dropouts. So if you say the word Nephilim, it seems to be a bit of a trigger. I don't know why, but it seems to happen. So your book has 3 stories in it which are related to angels
Mhm.
and angelic contact. Do you want to go over a bit of a synopsis around those stories?
Well, the book is kind of like it's a fictional story.
Yeah.
There are 3 fictional stories, but they're combined together with things I've heard and say how they would contact
Mm,
people.
yeah.
And the first one is because I always wanted the angels come to anybody, anywhere.
That's right.
So, we don't hear certain stories. So, me being African American, the first story was called the um, the gift and the gangster because I work with youth all the time, and it's a story about angels interacting with these youth in a street gang,
Yeah.
and each person received the power to heal that they interacted with in the 3 stories and how they
Mm,
handle that power. You're given a power and responsibility, how you handle that power and how it changes your life. And in this one, you have a 17-year-old kid that's with a vicious street gang, and all of a sudden he receives the power to heal.
mm,
And he's a drug dealer, and how it changes his life interact. Because once you're touched by angels, it changes your whole life.
absolutely. Absolutely. Look, I had an experience with an angel one time. It relates similar to the story that you told. I was riding on a motorbike and I was young, so obviously I was riding at way too fast speeds on roads that I thought I knew really, really well. And it's around about midnight and it's raining, and I overestimated the corner that was ahead, forgetting that I was actually on another corner coming up, and I hit it at way too fast speed. And I I knew in that moment that there's no way I'm going to make this and I will definitely die. And this voice popped into my head at that moment and said, "Not yet." And then my body was taken over for a moment and controlled the motorbike absolutely perfectly, got me around the corner and then released me. And I just slowed down and really thought about what just happened and went, wait a minute, I don't know what that was. And I know now, obviously it was an angel and angelic contact to make sure that I got through, because there's more story to my life as yet. And I'm sure that a lot of other people go through that. Now, your story that is about a troubled man becoming a healer is an interesting story in that that would be inspirational for people. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
was the purpose of your writing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's how would angels connect in this day and age with human beings? And I've heard stories. One time I was watching TV, and it's just about angels, and I did a lot of research. I was watching TV, and there's one guy, and he talked about his dealing with angels when he was in World War II, and he said he was sleeping in an old building with his unit. He said as we took land, we'd sleep in old buildings for the night. And they said, well, this building I was in the past night and went back again there that night, the unit and stuff. And he said it was a floor, nobody was on it. Thought it was a perfect place to lay down. So he's going to go and lay down and stuff. He said all of a sudden the captain appears to him in the door and said, "Get your stuff. You're moving out of here. You can't stay here tonight." And he said, "Sir, but I've stayed here last night." He said, "Get your stuff and get out. And so he was pissed off, got out of the building and stuff. The building was hit with a mortar overnight and exploded. And so, the next day he goes back to his lieutenant and says, "Hey, that captain did me a favor getting me out of there and stuff. And he said, "There's no captain." He said, I'm the ranking officer here." And he said, "No, there's a captain." He said, "I saw the bars and everything." He said, "No, I'm the ranking officer. There's no captain here."
Mm.
And so whoever that was came at that time, disappeared. And it tells me, and I did my research. What amazed me about angels, not only they were made before, when I started looking at stuff and text, they were made before us.
Yes.
Because they had to be, because in Genesis you hear them in Genesis 1:26, you hear them is God say, "Let us make man." So I'm assuming us is the angels with him. He had already made them,
Right.
and they're with them. But the amazing thing is they have free will.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
And that intrigued me even more.
Yeah.
So you made us with free will, and you also made these other beings with free will. No.
You could
And they could decide to be good or bad also, like men.
That's right. Well, you could even take it to the next degree and say that our earlier ancestors may have been angelic.
Mm-hmm.
Taking it further back.
Yeah, that's another thought. I do believe in reincarnation. So
Yeah.
I do believe in reincarnation. As I got older, I'm kind of like, with religions, I think, my whole thought with religion is that even though I grew up in a Christian church and everything, was the fact that I think religion is so you could feel comfortable thinking the same thing with a group.
Right.
But I believe there's parts of it, every part of it, and a bit of it is a little bit. And for me, reincarnation had to be the thought for me because, what the Catholic Church say, taking your life is a mortal sin, then how can somebody else take my life too? Or they're not taking my life because I don't have just one life and I choose to come down, choose to do things and experience things. And I said that made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense to me too. There's a lot of lives that make up this life, and a lot of ancestors that have come before us. And part of my personal gratitudes every night before I rest, I put it out there that I offer gratitude to all my ancestors and all my angelic ancestors for all they've been through and all they've experienced, so I can be here now. And that puts a good resonance into my life. I'm certain of that. Ronnie, you've written that you believe there's aliens among us as well, and that we've never been getting along in the universe. I mean, what do you mean by that?
Aliens, yeah.
Yeah.
I cannot believe that, and some people still think in this day and age, it's just us.
Oh, yes.
Just us alone. I mean, there's billions of stars, and there's just us. And just us alone. And I said, and I get into arguments with people, and they're like, there can't possibly be just us. And why? God made us in his image. And I was like, that image might be, to me, it might be like the spirit that you can't see, the consciousness, the light, because I could never figure out what made people conscious. Some people call it the soul, the spirit. Can never figure out what made people conscious and made them exactly what they were. Because my father died, but they brought him back after worked on him for 25 minutes, and they brought his body back, but not him. And whatever that was in there that made him alive was gone, and his body was operating. And my sister was like, "Well, I think he's still alive." And I said, "No, they have him. The machines are making him breathe and everything." I said, look at him and carefully. Anything that was alive is gone. It's like furniture right now,
Yeah.
And I said, that's that thing that makes you who you are, and that spark. that soul consciousness. Doctors can't explain consciousness. They can
Mm.
work on your body. There's no way to explain what makes you uniquely you and brings you to life. And I was trying to tell her that, and then thought said, "We let's see how he does without the machines,
Yeah.
and if he's gonna come back or not." And that was my explanation. I said when I looked at him, I didn't feel he was in there anymore.
Yeah.
He wasn't
Right.
in there. His body was still here,
Yeah.
and so that whole thing is with me explaining and when you're made in your own image and stuff, the image is that thing that makes you you, not necessarily the body. So there are a lot more, I think, species and different with all these planets and stars. There has to be more different types of people.
Mm.
And
Mm.
I believe the government are hiding, it's hiding them from us. If you looked at the biggest thing I should work with my show again, of course, is that whole thing with Roswell.
Yeah.
1947. I had to be a clearer look at my notes here. It said 1947. You know, and Mark Brassel's ranch. A UFO landed. Um, First, you had the U.S. government admits that, yeah, we got a saucer.
Yeah.
And I said, and then they say somehow, you got Jesse Marcel, Major Jesse Marcel there, and he works with intelligence. He'll know the difference between a flying saucer and a weather balloon. Somehow, he works with Army intelligence, but he does not, and he's with the Air Force. Somehow, he doesn't know the difference. I said that was their first foray into how do we handle something actually landing. And they said, and they had to work through the whole thing. We can't tell people. We can't tell people. And they said we made a mistake. And then how do we handle the locals? The locals will be there before us. The
Mm.
fire department, the police will be there before us. We have all these entities we have to handle.
Right.
They will be there before us, looking through the wreckage and everything. And they also said not only did they found dead, not only did they found debris that was not of this world. So it was said too. They found bodies.
Yes.
Yeah, but why wouldn't they not tell us this? Why wouldn't they not tell us, the aliens exist? NASA lies about things all the time. We catch them in lies.
Yeah,
They lie
exactly.
about things all the time.
Yeah.
And if they don't exist, why do men in black show up whenever you have a UFO experience? They show up. They
Right.
ask you questions. They
Yes.
they want to know everything about it. What do you want to know about something that you say that doesn't exist?
Yeah.
You know, why are you taking information, taking down notes and everything? You say it doesn't exist. So they knew more than us, but why would they hide it? Why would they hide it? There's different reasons, I think. First of all, I think they've already contacted and talked to people on other planets. Somehow, I think the governments in the world they decided um, there could be two things that could be scary. One person said that I think one of the famous scientists said we learn from the past. If people come from another land to visit you with superior technology, does not turn out good for the people they visit. You know,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We've a lot of
we've
history of
we've
that.
seen that in the past
Yeah.
also. But
Yes.
if they came to do good, there would be a fear also too. If you're superior beings and they say, "Hey, we're here and we want to help you.
Mm.
Um, you got a problem with cancer? Let's cure it for you. Let us do this. Let us do that. Let's give you clean energy and stuff." Now, the people who are in charge of the planet be like, "Wait a minute, you're gonna get us something better than fossil fuel? That's my money."
Yeah. That's right. That's right.
You
Yeah.
keep that information.
Yeah.
Uh, I've gotten into fights with friends because they said my mom died of cancer, and I said there's probably several cures for cancer already, but they're not going to release them. To why? They'd have to close certain hospitals. It had to close treatment centers, hospitals around it and stuff. It's a loss of money. And I said, think about the last thing that they cured, polio,
Mm.
doing a Salk. They found out when they looked around and said, we put ourselves out of business. This is the worst business model ever. you know, the money is in the medicine treating the symptoms.
Exactly.
So they said, that's the worst model ever. We can't never do that again. We treat the symptoms. And I said, and with big pharma and the money they're making, I said, they're never going to do that. If aliens came with miracle cures and everything and stuff, it it would not, even if they were friendly and wanted to give that to us, they would kind of like, I think our officials would hide it from us
Right. Mm. Mm.
because we give the power to somebody else.
Yeah.
And we look up to those people with superior intelligence,
Mm. Mm.
and nobody wants to give up power.
That's true. That's very, very true. So circling back to your book, I thought I'd ask you some more questions around it. And you've got 3 stories in the book, and
Mhm.
you've got them all linked. How are they linked?
The stories are connected through um, a gentleman named Richard Scott telling 3 stories to his friend. So he
Yes.
meets him in McDonald's, and he last time he saw him, he thought, personally that he would die of cancer, and he starts telling me stories and telling him that angels are real, and you know, and he tells them these stories about healers, modern day healers. And
Yes.
I originally wrote the book, and I really wrote it, and it takes place in Cleveland, Ohio, 2009. But I originally wrote this book, and I think it was uh, 2009, but it was and I kind of revamped it for during COVID,
Mm.
which is weird because it's just like if anybody needs somebody to heal somebody, we had this pandemic going on. So I revised it, had different cover, kind of brought up the date and everything and stuff. So um, I was thinking because and one of the things that made me write the book is I would come home from work when I lived in Cleveland and stuff, and it was late night because I was working this night shift with abused kids and everything. So I was
Yeah.
working this night shift. I come home early in the morning, and there was to be this preacher on, and he would pretend to have the power to heal. And if you send him his things, he had these healing cloths. He put his hands in it and act like he would speak in tongue. And I was like, that is a bunch of crap. And I'm thinking to myself, well, what if people nowadays had the power to heal, which we know that people do? And I said, they wouldn't do this and ask people for money and stuff because if you really had the power to instantaneously lay hands on somebody and to heal them, it's like you'd probably be discreet about it because
Right.
people are to you, and want you to always touch them. You wouldn't put it out there like that. And I would say, how is it if you came to ordinary people and you gave them this power all of a sudden? How would they react? True.
Mm. Right. Right. Mm.
So the first book was The Gangster and the Gift. And I
Yes.
was like, so what would happen? Because I work with these kids. And I said, there's a kid from street gang and everything just initiated. And all of a sudden, he's gotten this power to heal. And I said, how would it change his life? And the second book was called Good Intentions. And Good Intentions was based on what is it? The saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yes.
Right. And it's about a minister. His name is Reverend Lincoln Hightower. Uh, he was cured a long time. He was cured when he was young and of a disease that he had. And it always stuck in his head. And he, with get the power to heal all of a sudden because he has an ailing church, a small church congregation, and a lot of people are getting sick. So he, if he had that power, what would he do? And sometimes you get what you want, and it changes you for the worse. Because
Yeah.
this one, there's a good man that turns on that puts him in the path with a cursed angel, and that's one of the characters I wrote. And I gave him the name Amziel. And Amziel is cursed because um, also when we're talking about angels, we know that angels have the ability to choose if they uh, free will. If they want to be good, they want to be evil. They decide and stuff. So we know there was a war. There was a war raged in heaven and in Revelations and stuff because the Watchers were cast down because they didn't do like they should and stuff, and they were cast out of hell also too. So we know, and the Bible tells us the morning star decided he would not um, be in the service of men, and when he decided that and everything, a third of heaven left with him also too.
Mm.
And so we know through free will uh, that happened. And my thing was, and what if an angel, since they have free will, decided, I'm not going to take sides in this battle. I'm just going to wait for the winner and I'll decide, who the winner will be, and I'll join them. What would
Yeah.
be his fate for not taking the side?
Mm.
And but so he has an unusual ability because angels have different abilities.
Yes.
Um, yes, and purposes and abilities. His is he's the angel of disease and pestilence.
Right.
And yeah, right. So Lincoln gets this gift, this great gift, and he's curing people, and it changes him probably into the minister, how the minister I saw that night would be. He starts to charge people and stuff. When he's doing all these things, he's an honest poor minister. He's doing all these great things, and then the money comes into play.
Right.
And it
Right.
changes him and stuff. And I wondered how that would end for him. So I don't want to give that away. And the last one is Marlene. She's a abused mother with two small children. And
Mm.
what if she was given the power to heal? How it would change her life.
Right.
So I thought about all that stuff and combined together and stuff. And I just said it would be interesting because angels, there are three different types of angels. Well, four, but they gave them their power, passed on their power. And, you know, um, angels have abilities. They have abilities and they have purposes. Um, the healing angel is Raphael. Most of the doctors and everything, according to the Catholic Church, he was tasked with uh, the the whole thing about healing the earth because once the once the Watchers that chose and they go against God and do certain things and stuff. So he was saying, and because not only did Watchers take uh, wives, and they created the Nephilim, the giants. And so when they created these giants and they were walking around the planet, and they also decided, oh, we're going to teach them about things we shouldn't, uh, astrology, uh, things that of the heavens, uh, teach them how to fashion weapons, things that they should not have taught them also too.
Right.
That they decided they would talk to and teach men certain things they weren't. So, and Enoch was supposed to speak for them because also the angel's ability is to find men through space and time. God sends you to find somebody and give them a message. You're supposed to be able to have that ability.
Right.
So they knew who's going to talk for us. Enoch is a righteous man. He'll be able to talk for us to God because we know God is mad at us, and soon he's going to send legions to take care of us. So
Right.
he goes to make the case for the angels. And we know in the book of Enoch. And he goes to make the case for the angels, and God listens to him. And he was in the great prophets because he walked with God, and God listens to him and says, he's already decided the fate of the watchers.
Right.
And it said, yeah. And he said, and Enoch's wondering, what about their offspring? Their offspring is not eating fat of the land. They're also eating, men at this point. So what about the offspring? He decides that he said the offspring would be taken care of because we know the begat that Enoch's is the great grandfather of Noah.
Mm.
So the
Right.
blood comes in, and the blood comes in and takes care. So to be taking care of the offspring. So, but we also know not all of them were killed because the story of David and Goliath. David fights Goliath. So they're not all, and he was supposed to be over 9 feet tall and have 6 fingers and 6 toes.
Right.
Because yes, from cavorting with angels, and some people say red hair. Now,
Yeah.
we know that.
Reported commonly.
Yeah, we also know that people have found giant skulls. They find giant skulls, giant femurs. Archaeologists have found,
Yes.
but the Archaeological Society has hidden that because it does not fit in with their narrative.
That's true. It wrecks the history story.
Right. But when Columbus has Indian mounds, big, huge Indian mounds, serpent built, and they said, "What are the big mounds?" And said, one time bodies were in them. It said the Native Americans talked about, bodies being in them and stuff. So they called them the serpent mounds, giant, shaped like giant snakes. And they said, they're huge burial for huge people and serpent mounds and stuff. So people know about it, but it's hidden from us. And, these finds and stuff. And they say, oh, that's doctored up. You found a huge giant skull. That's doctored up. A huge femur. That's doctored up. It doesn't fit in to their narratives. And of course, they have the power of your you're what the Archaeological Society is. That you want to be put out. You want to put this out here. You want to be put out. You want to be destroyed. Your reputation destroyed. No.
Yeah.
And so yeah, there's a lot of things hidden from us, and I don't even know half the reason why.
Yeah.
But I think we could live through them. But essentially, that's what the book talks about. And you can get it on Amazon. You can get it at book buyers. If you look it up and Google it. But when I looked through history and I thought of all this stuff, and when I had a show, I was like, there's so much hidden from us.
Yeah.
And so much we don't know.
Right. So what was it like for you when you were hosting your paranormal podcast in the past? And do you have any stories from that podcast that you'd like to share?
Yeah. What I was wanted to have anybody and everybody on there.
Excellent.
Anybody and everybody. It was like a kid in a candy store. There's a great show here in the U.S. called Coast to Coast AM.
Yeah, Coast to Coast.
That started by Art Bell, and now George Norrie has taken over from it and stuff. And it's almost every state in the middle of the night. He found an audience. At one time, he had a regular show, and I remember he said, "I'm going to do something different, talk about different things that interest me." And it could have killed him. It's like a torch in the night. When I used to drive sometimes between Cleveland and Columbus, which is almost like a 3-hour drive.
Yeah.
That show would be on one radio and pick up on another one. It says torch at night. He found this audience that truck drivers in the middle of the night, they're driving around, and they would blow their horn, and he talked about, cryptozoology, Nazi secrets, angels, UFOs, just anything in the paranormal world. And there's a huge, huge audience. so huge, and I would get some of my guests from listening to that show. And I would
Right.
say, yeah, I would listen because they put their websites on there, so I get some of my guests from listening to that show, and I was just fascinated by the whole thing. If I couldn't sleep sometimes, and if I was working that shift overnight, I'd listen to him, and it's fascinating. And he had all these phone lines. If you're west of the Rockies, call this. If you're this, call this. Call this. Well, and I couldn't get in. It was like
Yeah, it's
because
always
I
busy.
realized that shift is a shift for people working, doctors, firemen, EMTs. There are people working all night at hotels. There are people listening to that all night. So 4 hours, literally, you have the lines clogged up. You can't get in there. And I remember this guy I was listening to, and he's told about his website. So I'm going to go to his website in the middle of the night. I said, I'd like to get him as a guest. So I'm going in there and stuff. And he says, you're talking about UFOs over Washington and the proof, they were flying in airspace over Washington and stuff, and the jets couldn't do anything with them. So I go in there, type in, he says, oh my God, you crashed my website in the middle of the night. In the middle of the night, we literally crashed his website because I was like, I can't get in there for some reason. And that's how much I wanted to be guest driven. I wanted my
Mm,
show to be dress given like that and stuff, and find people and talk about anything I could,
right,
literally.
right. When you were running the show, did you ever have any unusual guests or stories that were so amazing that you'd like to share? That it had?
Fantastic stories.
Yeah.
Fantastic stories. There was this, I can't think of it, that talked about, I can't think of his name now, talked about the secret trip to Planet Circle. And talked about um, when they had found the UFO, they had found during a crash, they found somebody alive.
Yeah.
And I think it might have been with Roswell. So it was contact. So they learned to contact or make contact with this being that stayed alive. And literally, he was able to contact this planet they were coming back to get him. And they talked with these aliens in another star system about a what do you call it? You sent a group there and said, how about an exchange program? We go to your planet. And they agreed to it because they came back for the body and that person was dead. And they said it was kind of this person that was on there said it was akin to you saw Close Encounters of the Third Kind at the end with the army going up there with their equipment, going into the spaceship, the glasses and stuff. And they said that really happened like that. It
Whoa.
said so. Yeah, it was a group of military people, about 13 of
Mm,
them, 13 or 14, that were going to go with this exchange program and this star system with these beings. And they literally talked about it, and it came up. And they said, was it true? It came up on a site because everything, you're going to keep your mouth closed until you know your days are ending. And then
yeah.
you really
Right.
want to tell the story.
Yeah.
And this is this site that came up. They said that people were talking about they were part of an exchange program, military exchange program to this planet system. And
Right.
then this other guy was talking about it. Yeah, my father said he is part of this, and people are going back and forth. And so somebody contacted somebody else and said, "Hey, this site," and they haven't closed it down. I think these guys are lying. And this guy was connected with somebody who was an insider with the government, and he looked at it and he said, "Why are they talking about this?" He didn't say it wasn't true, and he said, "You sound like it's true," and he said, "It is, but why are they talking about it? Where'd they
Yeah.
get the
Right.
information?"
Oh wow.
Right. And they talked about jumping through wormholes, and it took to get to their planet. It took them about several months jumping through wormholes,
God.
and they were light years away from us. And literally, when they got there, and for some reason, our military took tanks and weapons. We didn't know why they took weapons. One person died on the way there because I read the book. One person died on the way there. And so these aliens, who they called Edens, decided they're going to take him apart. This human being that died. So they're working on him, and they're kind of like, it sounds like the government. Let's get our guns and go in there and get that person back. And they said they apologized. They said their scientists were taking them apart on the way there. They said, "Oh, we're sorry," and stuff. And they say, "Yeah, we want to give him a burial and stuff." And they say, "Yeah," and they were kind of angry. And the Ebens told them and said, "Well, you've taken our people apart. We want to see how you work too," which was true. So
Yeah, it's fair
you
enough.
say he's dead. He's dead. You took our person apart. I mean, we want to do the same thing. So you can't really get mad about the situation,
Right, of course.
But yeah, and they said they stayed there almost 2 years and came back, and one person stayed on, and they had two sons,
Oh.
and they said that other people from other planets and other systems were there. They would come through there constantly. It was kind of like an airport stop, and all these other things.
The Singapore of
Right.
space.
Right. We're the only ones not connected. It was just fascinating. I said, I don't know if it's real or not, based on that and stuff. And these people that talked about this, and it was just very interesting. I think that was one of the most interesting guests, the person that wrote that book. And it was from that website where they got all the information. People talked about it. And I do believe that there was an exchange program.
Right. Well, it's certainly possible that it is happening, but maybe not exposed to the general public. So that would not be surprising, because a lot of things aren't.
Right. Right.
So you've also written a small novella called Island Alien.
Yes.
What is that about?
Island Alien is I was at Put in Bay, and here Put in Bay is an island about a mile long. You take a boat and it's in Lake Erie, Cleveland, Ohio. You take a boat, which I did see. I did see a UFO over Lake Erie.
Right.
And when my kids were little, we were flying kites. I'd take them out there to fly kites by the lake. So we're flying kites. But across on the other side of the lake, which is really things, because they Perry nuclear plant is across the other side of the lake. So they like to always hang around nuclear plants, UFOs.
Yeah.
So we're getting our kites up, and it's getting really windy, and other people are flying their kites. So I said, we got to take them down. The kites are going to get tore up. It's getting really windy by the lake. So we're pulling in our kites and everything. And I said, there's a silver kite way up there. I was looking to see if anybody had it tethered. I said, it's going to get tore up. And it wasn't a kite. It was the bottom of the silver triangle, and it started moving across the lake. And I thought it was a kite, because their kites were kind of like triangle shaped, but this started moving across the lake over the Perry nuclear plant. And I said, I'll see UFO. In the day, But so I thought I went vacationing, and I thought this would be a great place, because it's like a little party island.
Right.
There are bed and breakfasts, and you can only ride around on bikes or golf carts on there, because it's about a mile long.
Right.
And it's a great place for adults, but really bad place for kids. Because in the summer, if you don't have nobody, you can go to the mainland and visit, because they have a school there, a little police station and everything, but they don't have malls and everything. They got bars for adults to play in and stuff. So I said, it would suck to be a kid here. And I said, I did see a UFO here. And I was like, I'm gonna write a story about a novella. And it's like, and I said, and I wrote a novella about it. And I have a character in there that had a show that this kind of the father and son relationship. His son's telling it, but his father had a radio show, a paranormal radio show about UFO contact, and who kid was embarrassed about it when he was growing up. But and it talks about a contact with an alien when he was little on that island and stuff. And I said, this would be a great place, this for a UFO to land. And I thought about that and I wrote that. And the reason I call it the cell phone tales, because there's some write some more stuff on it. And because a friend of mine said, I don't read stuff. I read stuff on my phone. I said, how can you see it? He said, I read stuff on my phone on the way to work and everything, on the bus. And they said, you should make something that the Kindle format that you could read on the way to work and stuff. So I said, yeah, I called it cell phone tales and wrote that. So
Yeah, cool. Have you released that one yet, or?
yes, it's there. It's only 99 cents
Oh yeah, cool.
for
So
that
it's on
book.
Amazon too.
Yeah, it's on Amazon. It's only 99 cents. It's
Okay.
47 pages long, made for
Okay.
you to read on the way to work or something like that.
Right, right. Well, I'll include all the links for your books in the bottom of my show notes as well. Now, one more question before we wind up for today. Do you see yourself in any of the people that you have in your books?
I do in Island Alien, kind of like the father that was he had his show, and the son was kind of embarrassed about it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. He had this where people will call in and talk about their UFO experiences and everything and stuff. So and I kind of people, yeah, that's kind of me, part of me, and I think it. And every character is a bit of me. But in that one, I said the most and stuff. I did have a person I knew when I wrote the Good Intentions, and it was a minister I knew. He very small church, and I always ran into him because he was downtown with the kids being arrested and everything, helping them in the jails and stuff like that, going in the homeless shelters. He was always there, and he didn't have a big mega church, but he was working as hard as anybody with one. And he asked me one time when he read the book, he says, "Is that me?" I said, "Yeah, parts of it." So
That's excellent. That's excellent. Wow, that's cool. That's cool. Okay. So yeah, your life is in your books, you're in your books. And I think overall that you've got a big heart with all of your stories there, and how you want to help people and maybe make them in contact with angels in some way in their own lives. And that's a huge thing, Ronnie. And I really appreciate the time that we've shared here today.
thank you.
Yeah, if you have any messages that you'd like to put out there to people, I mean, we are all going through challenging times, and the last 2 or 3 years have been very challenging for a lot of us, and we are going into more challenging times. And I say that it looks like we're on the edge of apocalypse, and apocalypse doesn't mean the end of everything; it just means the revealing of things, as far as I'm concerned. For you, how would you help people to get through these challenging times? What good messages could you leave us all with and share to the world?
It's funny you should say that. That's when I said this book should come out, and I was like, I had to redo it and put it back out and stuff. I said at the time because everybody needs a healing and to believe that they can be healed, and things don't have to be how they are, and that there is, and I didn't know any religion, but I said there is a creator. When people ask me and stuff, they say, "Are you Christian?" I said, "No." Say, "You don't believe in God?" I said, "No, it's logical to believe in the spirit being." And I said, this, to get here where we are and how we are above all these other animals, there has to be a superior being. Because I say we control our environment. I'm amazed every time I get in a plane and fly and it goes up in the air that somebody put all this together. I throw a rock in the ocean, it goes down in the ocean. But I'm on a cruise ship that's huge and the size of a hotel, and it's not sinking. I'm amazed. I said, there has to be a superior being because this can't be happenstance.
Exactly. That's it, and that's a very good message to end on. So I appreciate your time, Ron, and thank you so much for all your sharing with us and getting through the tech difficulties as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I look forward to reading your book. I haven't read it myself yet, but I'm going to get it there and have a good read. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right, see you, Ron. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
That was a interesting interview with Ron. We had some technical difficulties that we had to overcome, and it all happened when we started talking about Nephilim and aliens and everything. And from my experience of listening to other podcasts and podcasters, that's not unusual. But I'm a big advocate for working with angels, and I personally will. I actually contact angels in my everyday, and part of that every day is saying prayers and contacting the angel of the day, which is related to the planet of the day. And one of the prayers that I really like working with is the Seven Angels prayer, for example. And yeah, I mean, today is Saturday, so today is the angel Cassiel, and so I've already done a prayer to the planet of the day and the angel of the day, and lit a candle as a part of my own personal practice to give thanks for what they provide in my life. And yeah, I think these small things add up over time and offer for all of us a bigger experience of life. And I think Ron is attempting to bring and has brought into the world with his books, and he's sharing today even a different way of contact, which is welcome for a lot of people, I would say, especially during these times. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope that everyone has a really good day, time, whatever you get up to. And yeah, see you next time. Bye for now.